Drew, or Elon, did you have anything on
anger
and humor? And
oh, well, shit. Those are my materials. I mean, I think that you have to have a sense of humor, especially if you're going to talk about things that hurt you or other people, because like you can like dredge up the pain together and like talk about what's happening, but if you can't I mean, I understand my role anyway to be like, to make sure that there's a point where you come in and laugh because it's absurd, and like, I mean, I guess a concrete example to not just be like so big is that like I made this movie about taking care of my dad when he was dying, and the title is The Most Fun I Ever Had With My Pants On, but it comes from something that my dad used to say, which was killing someone is the most fun I ever had with my pants on. Which is kind of a double whammy when you're a kid, because it means that your dad likes killing people, but also that the only thing he likes more than that requires taking his pants off, which is just not something you want to imagine as a child. And so it's like one of those things that like I was very used to these words. The first time I like remember saying it to like an adult or something, I was like, what? and there's a lot of like politic wrapped up in that statement. And he was like drafted to Vietnam and like had an experience that I can't even try to imagine myself. But violence, is a part of his life. And so for me, the way to talk about that isn't only to get upset about it, that's a part of it. And then the next step is to really look at it for how absurd it is and try to find some sympathy in there. Because I think when you laugh, you open yourself up to a connection with somebody that you can't have if you're angry all the time. Like, anger is really important, but, there has to be a point, where you can allow for some kind of understanding. And I think laughter is really the most pleasant way to that understanding, but also, really effective way to do that. And it's therapeutic, because if you can't laugh at it, what can you do?
So I thought we could maybe talk about that word feminist.
Yeah.
Yeah, that word that's kind of like become a dirty word, even though that's a weird thing at all, right? So I just thought talking about like how that word felt, when you first started making your work and kicking ass, but also kind of how it feels now, and thinking about youth cultures coming up and how that word circulates and doesn't circulate, and maybe whether it's through story, for examples, or just kind of how you feel about it.
I like it. I like the word. I never had a problem with it. I don't understand why people have a problem with it. That's all I could. I don't know what. I mean, I guess I don't fully understand the why anybody would not want everyone to be equal, and I can't even address it because I don't get it.
Right. Yeah, I never had an option with the word. Anyways, I mean, not that I want an option, but I mean, the way I was raised with my mom and everything, it was like feminism was the #1 thing, in the house all the time. So, it definitely wasn't something that I ever questioned. It's always a word I use and part of my identity. But I guess in a way, even if you have like cool parents or whatever, you have to rebel somehow. So there probably were times when I was like, oh God, do we still have to be worried? I mean, abortion, that's such an old issue. I mean, look, and my mom's like, just you wait and see. That shit's gonna roll back. And it's like, everything is coming to pass. Yeah, it's incredible. But I thought, oh, we dealt with that. That's old-fashioned. So, I mean, but there's just a lot of stuff that I think I kind of maybe thought, oh, whatever, you're kind of overdoing it or over whatever. But then I realized, like, oh no, it's just the tip of the iceberg. But yeah, so I've always, of course, used the word and feel strongly about it. But I also really believe in having conversations and work and music and everything be politicized. And I'm not saying like, you can't make art or music for art and music's sake, but I just think it's more interesting when it's somewhat politicized or just something, has some kind of edge or isn't challenging in some way. And I find that there's just a lot of stuff out there now that I guess I'm surrounded by that I don't feel like I don't understand why it's not more feminist, or I don't understand why it's not more politicized, or I don't know. Like, I don't know, I was in a restaurant last night eating with some friends, and we were at this place called Mallison. It's just whatever, anyways. But I just was looking at it, and they were glorifying Mao, and I was like, that's kind of fucked up, don't you think? And I started to talk about it with the people there, and they were like, well, that's the theme of the restaurant, and that's why it's about Mao. And I'm like, it's called Mao. Yeah, and I was like, he's a fucked up guy. You know, I was just like, I don't know, have you read anything about it? And then I thought about it, I was like, oh, what? I don't know. Like, and then I think everybody was like, what the fuck is she trying to politicize this meal right now?
You have to write a song.
It was last night.
Yeah.
I know.
Tonight.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Well, that's
But
It's so like apathetic. I don't know. I don't understand why people like that I work with, or people who are my age. It's all of a sudden like the word isn't modern enough, or it's not necessary anymore. And that's when I'm like, I mean, I moved here from Texas, so I never experienced a moment where it wasn't necessary. And you know, it like the idea, exactly like what you're saying, to me, I'm like, when did the idea of equal rights go out of fashion or no longer become necessary? How do you, so we don't need to fight for this one group anymore? That, okay, you know, like, it really, I get really upset about it because I feel like it's the wrong argument to be having. And if you have, if you're lucky enough to speak and you know, have people listen to you, which, you know, things like social media make that a lot easier, which is both good and bad, as I'm sure we've all felt while looking at that feed.
I just ate breakfast.
But I'll agree, like, if I'm going to, you know, think about my life and my actions and my words in the context of the time that I'm living in, they can be political, and they, you know, in my mind should be. And there, you know, there is not a time where fighting for equal rights is not necessary. At least it hasn't happened yet, and I don't see why it's like unfashionable to state that that's a motivator and an intention in the action of creating an artwork. And that's one thing that I lament about my own sort of, you know, culture, is that I feel like, you know, it's too bad that suddenly it wasn't cool anymore. And it doesn't mean it's not happening. I just, you know it's bad when you read like Bust magazine and they're like, are you a feminist? In the interview, and the person's like, I don't know. And you're like, what? Come on, ladies!
Yeah.
They need a pop out of you like responding like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess the word needs like a PR campaign or something. Like,
I mean, I understand if people want to use different words, that's great, awesome. Because we do have to kind of keep everything fresh with different strategies and whatever, and language and everything. But I mean, yeah, when people just deny it, or
Spell it with a PH.
right. But I think as long as sexism exists, then feminism has to. So it's like, instead of being like, oh, feminist is so post-feminist, it's like, well, but we're not post-sexist. I don't know. It's just like, okay, well, I'm really bored with sexism. Capitalism and racism, whatever. Like, yeah, okay, cool. Let's get rid of it then. Or, I mean, but you have to have the struggles, you know. I don't know. I don't understand, when people don't concern themselves with, oh, I'm not political. Like, but your silence is political.
yeah, whether you like it or not, your participation in society is political. How you choose to participate or choose not to participate is is political. So if you can't get out of it, you might as well do it well. I mean, you might as well think about it.
But I was curious, I was wondering, like, when you were, you know, back in the day, when you were punking out, and I mean, like, do people use that word in the punk scene then, or how was, I don't know, how was
No,
was anything
not really.
politicized? I mean, it was so political. Like, to me, I see what everything that you guys did is so political.
It's funny because I don't think most of us realized it. I think what was happening was that there was a level of incompetency that kind of equalized the playing field. Because, you know, punk is so much about like just having the raw energy, and, you know, it freed a lot of women that wanted to play an instrument. So a lot of us were just playing, and we weren't really thinking that it was a political act. We were just thinking, oh, we finally get a chance to be up there. And then, you know, ended up like, it's kind of sad now because I feel like that's why I do the interviews on my website, is because I feel like a lot of books have been written about punk, but in the very early punk scene, women were equally represented in every aspect, like in bands, in writing the zines, being photographers, in all aspects, everything. They were, and now when people write about it in retrospect, they kind of just focus on the guy bands, you know.
You're written out of history.
You're written out of history, so.
Yeah, because I mean, that was, all of that stuff would have been useful to me when I was first like trying to start a band. I mean, I didn't even know, and we didn't have the internet.
Yeah.
And so I didn't even know about half of the punk bands with women in it from before. And then like you have these guys, like whenever we would be moaning about sexism or something, our guy punk friends would be like, well, whatever. I mean, there's like the Avengers and everything. And it's like, and then treating us like we were stupid because we didn't know our own history. And it's like, but it's hardly been written, or it's hard to find, or women are written out of history, and a lot of people, marginalized people, are written out of history.